realized. There's a writer named Michael Bradley in his book titled The Iceman Inheritance. He raises questions about his own white race. He states, why are we like this? Of the aggressive and destructive acts of the Caucasians, Michael Bradley writes, much effort has been expended in attempts to make sense of our own apparently senseless behavior. I propose, he writes, that the white race possesses an atypical level of aggression. What is the definition of atypical? It's an adjective that means unusual, untypical, uncommon, unconventional, unorthodox, irregular, abnormal, anomalous, aberrant, and deviant. It is in the sphere of abnormal violence that we Caucasoids excel among races. Mr. Bradley writes, it is this kind of violence that makes our history appear senseless to other men and senseless and even baffling to ourselves. The Caucasoid, uniquely among the races of mankind, evolved in a glacial or cold environment. He suggests that scarcity of resources and survival of day-to-day cave life is what caused Caucasians to become so aggressive. He writes, this group of men did develop in a narrow zone of life between fire and ice, between the cave fires and the savage cold. These special adaptations had incidental side effects which resulted in an exceptionally aggressive psychology, an extreme expression of the Cronus complex, and a higher level of psychosexual conflict. What did he mean, Cronus complex? It is mainly derived from the Greek verb krans. It means to exercise sway, to reign over, to govern, to rule. So the Cronus complex has to do with one who has this inordinate need to exercise sway, to reign over, to govern, a feeling of entitlement to rule. This is in the nature of the Caucasian people. And this comes back again to the Holy Quran. I'm going to place a ruler in the earth. So if he's going to place him in the earth, he also has to place in this ruler what is called the Cronus complex. That idea or thought that he is to be the ruler until the coming of God to interfere with his rule. And that's why it's so difficult for white people to submit to any ruler other than himself. Now, psychosexual conflict is attributed to Sigmund Freud, who developed its theory of how sexuality starts from a very young age and develops various fixations. If these stages are not physiologically completed and released, they can be trapped by them, and they may lead to various defense mechanisms to avoid the anxiety from the conflict at that stage. The reason why this is so important, he talks about when you go to look at European history, particularly one of the best examples is a Roman ruler known as Caligula. Their whole worship was in phallic symbols, sex organs, orgies, and the drive of sex. What created this psychosexual drive? When we study the womb out of which the Caucasian came, he'll gain a better understanding of himself, and we also will gain a better understanding of him and a better understanding of how he has made us like himself. U.S. Senator James Ingalls from Kansas in 1890 was speaking to the president. Listen to his words. Mr. President, the race to which we belong is the most arrogant and rapacious, the most exclusive and indomitable in history. It is the conquering and the unconquerable race through which alone man has taken possession of the physical and moral world. All other races have been its enemies or its victims. Rapacious means destructive and vicious, engaging in violent pillaging and likely to harm or destroy things. An author and a Southerner named Gerald W. Johnson in 1964 wrote, "Of all the creatures to appear on this earth, the white man is the fiercest by far." John A. Hobson, an author, wrote on imperialism, and he writes, "An actual history of Western relations with lower races occupying lands on which we have settled throws then a curious light upon the theory of a trust for civilization. When the settlement approaches the condition of genuine colonization, it has commonly implied the extermination of the lower races, either by war or by private slaughter, as in the case of Australian Bushmen, African Bushmen, Hottentots, Red Indians and Maoris, or the Aborigines of Australia, or by forcing upon them the habits of a civilization equally destructive to them. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, "For every 1,000 years of the white race's existence on our planet, they have killed 100 million people of color for every 1,000 years. So in 6,000 years, they have killed nearly 1 billion people of color. And now, according to what we have read from Mr. Kissinger, they intend to cull the population of our planet by from 2 to 3 billion people. These are the bloodshedders of our planet." Well, those of the lower races tend to disappear, this man writes, who are incapable of profitable exploitation by the superior white settlers, either because they are too savage for effective industrialism or because the demand for labor does not require their presence. Are you looking for a job? Are you too savage for effective industrialism, or because the demand for labor does not require your presence? Are we going to Washington to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington? And are we 50 years later going to still be begging government, seeking jobs and justice? Mr. Hobson continues, "Whenever superior races settle on lands where lower races can be profitably used for manual labor in agriculture, mining, and domestic work, the latter do not tend to die out, but to form a servile class. This is the case not only in tropical countries where white men cannot form real colonies, working and rearing families with safety and efficiency, and where hard manual work, if done at all, must be done by colored men. But even in countries where white men can settle, as in parts of South Africa and of the southern portion of the United States, this servile state of being is our lot. As we entered these countries for trade, so we stay there for industrial exploitation, directing to our own profitable purposes the compulsory labor of the lower races. This is the root fact of imperialism, so far as it relates to the control of inferior races. When the latter are not killed out, they are subjected by force to the ends of their white superiors. A female author, Ryan Eisler, wrote, asking the question in her book, The Chalice and the Blade, why do we hunt and persecute each other? Why is our world so full of man's infamous inhumanity to man and to woman? How can human beings be so brutal to their own kind? What is it that chronically tilts us toward cruelty rather than kindness, toward war rather than peace, toward destruction rather than actualization? You become frustrated. You become disappointed. And in that disappointment, you don't handle it well, and it drives you to insanity, and then you want to kill someone. Well, that is how the devil is made. This world is in such terrible condition that its present rulers are at their wits' end to solve the problems that their wickedness has created. They are 100% dissatisfied with their own world because of the evil effect of their mischief-making and bloodshedding and what it is now bringing upon them.